The Nitrogen Loss Assessment Tool, or N-LAT, from UNL can help corn and soybean farmers monitor nitrogen in crop production. We sat down with Nebraska Extension Nutrient Management Specialist Charlie Wortmann earlier this week to see how the N-LAT works, and began by asking about the purpose of the tool.
Well, let me start by saying what it is not. It is not a tool to be used every year for determining how much nitrogen you should put on, when you should put on it, etc. We have other tools for that. And it's not for use in season to try to estimate how much loss there has been to leaching, for instance. Again, we have other tools for that. What it is more for long-term planning, where you're making decisions before planting as to how much you put on, when you put it on, method of application, etc. for nitrogen, and you can then determine how much loss that you are having on average over years.
Walk me through the N-LAT tool and how a producer might be able to use it on his or her operation.
Well, it's very easy to use. You download it, it's in Excel, you enable macros, and you're ready to use it. The first thing you do is you select a county. It's got some drop-down list with arrows, and you select the county, and maybe you select Adams County, for instance. You see some cells are gray. The gray cells are where you can type in information. And sometimes the information comes up by default, and you can leave it, such as the typical soil pH for that soil type, or if you have soil test information, you can overwrite that. You then tell it about your crops, and it's really for corn, soybean, either continuous corn or corn soybean rotation. And if maybe you're doing with the corn soybean rotation, you would select corn as one crop and soybean as the other crop, maybe 200 bushel corn, 40 yields of corn, and 60 for soybean. Then you drop down a little bit, and there's another drop-down list to choose the soil type. And you go there, and in our example, we selected Anselmo fine sandy loam. And it shows the values it has for pH and for organic matter. And again, you can accept these or overwrite it. If you move to the right, you tell it about irrigation. And let's select furrow irrigation, for example. And because it's furrow irrigation, typically we put on more water than we would with other means. Let's say we're putting on 16 inches on this sandy loam. And that the irrigation water has 8 parts per million nitrate nitrogen. Then we drop down a bit to where we select our fertilizers. And we're going to go to a drop-down list and select anhydrous ammonia injected. And we have a gray box there where we can enter the rate, and let's put in 220 pounds per acre nitrogen. That's all that needs to be entered for this scenario. We do have an option to enter something for manure and inhibitors, but we're not entering anything here.
So you've done the first field, then you can do more fields after that?
Right, but let's make some changes. And let's switch from furrow irrigation to pivot irrigation. And let's reduce the amount of water applied to 10 inches. And then we think we can be more efficient on nitrogen use. So with fertilizer, we're going to reduce how much we put on. For the anhydrous ammonia, let's put on 80 pounds in the spring. And then let's put on another 80 pounds as UAN, that is urea ammonium nitrate, liquid nitrogen. And with those changes, let's see what our results are. And we see our total losses are greatly reduced.
So once you've finished inputting all the data you have, you've clicked report, and what do you do with the data?
Well, you study it, and you see, first of all, do we have a problem? Are we really concerned about how much nitrogen we're losing? And much of our nitrogen loss comes from relatively little of our agricultural land. It's land that's more susceptible to loss, and where the management practices don't quite match. And much of our land does not have a great deal of loss. So you may decide, well, no change is necessary. But if you find the loss is quite high, you can try a different scenario. You look at the results and then make the decision. Should I change or should I not change?
On the Market Journal website, you can find a link to download the N-LAT and more resources on nitrogen use in crop production.